This is the curriculum guide that we use to keep track of your progress. It's sort of a nice visual representation of what coursework you can anticipate with the Physio and Medical Sciences degree. So we'll go through kind of each section to give you an idea of everything here. The first thing we'll talk about is going to be your foundation requirements. These are requirements that all U of A students have to complete. So if you change your degree or you add a degree at some point, you still have to complete English, math, and a second language. So we'll start up here. You have to complete either English 101 and 102 or English 109H to complete this requirement. And something that goes along with this is called the Mid-Career Writing Assessment. This is just a fancy way of saying that you've completed either English 102 or English 109H with a B or better. So that's all that means. It's just a graduation requirement. The next part is the math requirement, and so you can see here that the Physio and Medical Sciences degree requires a pretty high level of math, which hopefully isn't too surprising, but we require that you complete courses through Calculus 1, so that's these here. And so if you take the placement exam and place lower than that, don't worry too much. We have different four-year plans based on your initial math placement, so you'll still be able to complete the degree requirements, but it's more important for you to start where you're at and work your way up rather than trying to start at a level that you're just not prepared for. And so math is one of those things that requires practice, and it's okay if you need to practice more to get to that level. And then there's also a second math requirement here. You'll see that you can either complete Calc 2 or Biostatistics. And these are both, options that you can satisfy this one requirement here. So you're not doing both of these, it's one or the other. And you can talk with your advisor about which one makes more sense to you. And then the last thing is going to be your second language requirement. And so you're required to complete 2 semesters of a language or higher. So typically this means that you do 101 and 102 of a language, but the numbering may vary from language to language. But the nice thing is if you take a language placement exam and you place into 102, so second semester or higher, so say you place into Spanish 201, which is third semester, you only need to complete that one course to satisfy the requirements, so you wouldn't have to start lower and go up. And there's also an option to take a proficiency exam here, and that really is appropriate for you if you are proficient in a language other than English and you feel confident in being able to perform at a second semester level or higher. And again, you can talk with your advisor about what the best option is for you. The next part of the degree requirements are going to be these general education requirements. So again, these are things that all U of A students have to complete, but there are some differences in them. So there's going to be Tier 1 and Tier 2, so 2 different tiers, and then subcategories within each of those. And so in Tier 1, you have individual and society, and traditions and cultures, and you can see when you search for classes, these are going to be numbered 150 and 160. And so you have to complete 2 in each of these categories here in order to complete the Tier 1 requirements. And then in Tier 2, there are 3 subcategories. There's individuals and societies, arts, and humanities. And again, you have to do 1 in each of these. So in total, it's going to be 7 courses. So 4 in Tier 1, 3 in Tier 2. And then you also, with one of these 7 courses, you have to complete what's called a diversity emphasis. And that's just really focused on non-Western cultures. And so you could take a Tier 2 humanities course with a diversity emphasis and have that one course count towards both the humanities requirement as well as your diversity emphasis. One thing that I want to mention is you are not required to complete any natural science courses. So you don't see any natural sciences required here. And that's just because, as we'll get to in a minute here, you're doing a lot of science as part of the degree requirements anyway. And so we just waive those requirements so that you're not taking more science than you need to. So if you hear anyone talking about either Tier 1 170 courses or Tier 2 natural science courses, that doesn't apply to you. So then that leads in pretty nicely into this big chunk of courses here, which are the supporting sciences. And so as you can see, there's a lot of them, and yes, they do all have to get done at some point. Each of these is really important to being able to understand concepts later on in the degree requirements, so I promise there's a reason that you're taking all of these. And so as you can see, you're required to complete 2 semesters of general chemistry, 2 semesters of organic chemistry, 2 semesters of biology, And then 2 semesters of physics, and then of course biochemistry is kind of the outlier here because it's not a lab science, but it does fit with the supporting sciences here. So all of these have labs associated with them except for biochemistry here. And I know it looks like a lot to complete. It is a lot, but if you look through the 4-year plans, you'll see that as long as you're chipping away at these courses, they're manageable in a traditional 4-year time frame. So they'll all get done at some point at the end here. So then the next part is going to be focused on this right-hand side of the curriculum guide, so the actual major coursework. So everything on here is going to be a degree requirement. This stuff is the major specific. So when we talk about that, we have required courses and also major electives. So the required courses for the physio and medical sciences major is going to be Physio 201 and Physio 202, which are your introductory courses, and you basically go through every aspect of the human body. So all the muscles, all the bones, every fibers, all the processes associated with that. So it's a great time to check in with yourself, since this is really going to be the first major specific course that you take. That's science-based, and so this is a good time to make sure that this feels like a good fit. And then as you progress, you then also have to take Physio 303 and Physio 305, and so those are the required courses. And then as we move down to the major electives, that's going to make up the rest of the courses here, and so this means you get a little bit of choice in what you want to complete. And so you can see there's 3 different lists here. So list A are the physio-specific courses. So all of these here are each really diving into a particular system in the body. So for instance, Physio 431 is going to dive into the immune system, and so you get a really good sense of how all of that works. And then you can pick whichever ones you're interested in, and so you can really decide what is most interesting to you. List B is going to be medical science courses, and so these are courses that are actually taught in the College of Medicine, and they cover different topics that might be helpful to you. So things like toxicology or pharmacology, those kinds of courses. And then list C is going to be our student engagement courses, so things like independent study or directed research, as well as the alternative biological electives. And what I mean by that are these courses like anthropology and MCB, nutritional sciences, these courses that are still within the science realm but aren't physio specific. So they're related to physio, but they're not actually physio. So things like biology of cancer, nutrition and metabolism, very much rooted in physiological processes, but not falling under, it's not an actual physio course per se. And so this is nice because it allows you to pick what you're interested in, and you can really mold this degree to be as individualized as you are and to fit the not only the degree requirements but also your potential career goals. And so we've put together some general recommendations based on the common path that we see students pursuing, and so make sure you work with your academic advisor to plan what's best for you. And then the last thing I want to mention here is something called advanced standing. Advancement is a fancy way to say that you have completed some important foundational courses and you're ready to start taking those upper divisions, so those 300 and 400 level courses. We put this in place to make sure you're successful, and once you really start diving into the major requirements, we want you to be able to earn those really good grades in these courses and make sure that you understand what's happening in them. So the good news is the application process isn't competitive, it's not selective in any way, so as soon as you meet the criteria, you're eligible to apply. And so the specific criteria are marked with these check marks on here, and so you're required to complete either English 101 and 102 or English 109H. You're required to complete Calculus 1. You're required to complete the mid-career writing assessment, which again goes with English 102 or 109H. And then you're required to complete your 2 general chemistries. And of course, you're also required to complete Physio 201 and Physio 202 with C's or better. And so as long as you meet those criteria, you can apply for advanced standing in there. And so again, these are in place to help you build a good foundation to ensure you're successful moving forward. So this is kind of the degree in a nutshell. Of course, we'll go into personalized, more in-depth detail, but this is really how we keep track of your progress. So hopefully this gives you a nice snapshot of what to expect.